All right, let's do it. Let's do it. I am Pops, and we are live. And as promised, folks, let's talk about something that is good, something that you can watch that you may not have seen. It is, in fact, coming up on some key anniversaries, and I wanted to have somebody on with me that really knows history and a movie lover. Great up and coming YouTuber, just growing so fast. In the last 2 years, he's just done so many great rewatches. He has a great Friday show. So Troy PACELLI's with me, and Troy, thanks so much for fitting me in, and let's talk about some cool stuff for a change, man. How you doing?
Much. And as I always start my streams, what you sipping on?
Yeah, what are you sipping on?
I am sipping on normally I don't imbibe the adult beverages except on Fridays, but making a special exception for this one. I'm drinking a Jameson Irish whiskey in honor of Winston Churchill. He was more of a Johnny Walker kind of guy, but I'm drinking what I got.
Gotcha. And as usual, I'm drinking a Dr. Pepper product because that's
exactly what I would normally be drinking at this time, right?
That is what normally I have Dr. Pepper Zero, but they're actually coming a little harder to come by, and they're not quite as ubiquitous. So tonight it's a little bit left over of my diet Dr. Pepper. So
yep.
And I have to go to the movies here soon, so I will be probably having more Dr. Pepper to keep myself awake and keep going.
What you seeing tonight?
I'm going to see that. I'm going to see the Strange movie, Doctor Strange.
I'll be looking forwed to your review.
Somebody has to fall on the sword and talk about the calamity that is the MCU. But I had more hope for the film before the reshoot announcements had come out. The extensive 6 weeks, 6 days a week thing, and I despise America Chavez. Like I literally have struggled to get through the comic book. My kids got me the Marvel app, and I can't even tell you how many times I've had to stop. It's so off the rail, cringy bad.
Yeah. I can imagine.
I don't know.
My wife and I, through the first few phases of the Marvel, we caught it opening weekend every weekend. We used to have a drive-in by us, but right the year before the pandemic hit, that drive-in closed up, and I feel like that also kind of correlates with the time that the MCU kind of went off the rails. So I've kind of stopped, I've lost interest. They completely lost me.
I'm always an advocate for such good entertainment. And for me, the MCU stuff, whether I like it or not, is still a great way to have conversation with the normies and try to encourage them about, well, this isn't any good, but this is good. So hopefully tonight this will be one of those type of things. And Ryan's in the chat, the professor himself. Hey buddy, hope you're doing well.
A real professor?
No, well, that's what I call him. I don't think he's actually a professor. It's my nickname.
I was going to say, because
there's a lot of
I'm
nicknames.
just an amateur historian here.
A lot of nicknames flying around the YouTuber universe, making some videos. So I'll be popping in and out. You do that, buddy. You are more than willing to pops in and out, as somebody said. So let's talk about Winston Churchill. We're coming up on next week. The 10th is the anniversary of Winston Churchill becoming the prime minister. And really, what struck me when I saw that pop up in my calendar was he is, his legacy is under attack much in a similar way that George Washington and Jefferson and some of our founders, as well as other leaders. Yeah. And I remember seeing this movie, Darkest Hour, and then Dunkirk, and thought to myself, there was so much more heroism and self-sacrifice than I knew. The movies opened my eyes down the rabbit hole a little bit because I enjoy reading history so much. So what is your just overall thoughts on Churchill and his legacy and all of that?
Aside from Maggie Thatcher, he's probably my favorite prime minister of England. But, he was, I'd say, the right man for the right time. And I think we'll probably get into that a little bit more as we start picking apart, like, the Darkest Hour.
Sure.
We do have to kind of address some of the politics. I think that's the biggest problem that we have with historic films, is that we tend to look at them one of two ways. We tend to look at them as the legend we've come to believe about history, and or through the prism of our own modern point of view.
Right.
And I think a historian tends to try to look at things as much as they can what was really going on here. Because we know the facts, we know the dates, we know what actually happened, but sometimes we never stop to consider the why.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's where a lot of times politics comes into it. And you get a lot of it in Darkest Hour, but a lot of it, I think, you get wrong.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So again, we'll probably get into that.
And, we'll use the trailer footage. I think it's less likely to get a copyright strike by using some of the trailer footage. So we'll just kind of zoom in and just have some different comments about it. But the film starts off with, the removal of Chamberlain and them not knowing exactly what to do when, people are not playing nice together. You have, the war over, the war is spreading across Europe into Belgium and France. And Churchill at least was right about this threat. So he has a lot of sort of like political capital that he's trying to play with his supporters to get into this prime minister role. In the film, Gary Oldman is just immersed. And there's so many. What I love about the film too is sometimes when you have these character pieces, someone might transform into the Look, but you don't get like different versions of the Look. Gary Oldman has like 3 or 4 different versions of Churchill that he's kind of, it's like he's buttoned up. He has a hat, doesn't have a hat. He's got the cigar and some of the stereotypical looks. Sometimes he's in, there's a couple bath scenes where he's in a robe or he just got out of bed. And I thought, if anything, I had to just start by trying to praise him because I thought he just did this incredible job. So that was one thing I wanted to start off with. And I see, Troy is kind of bouncing in and out. Not sure if he's having a problem on his end or something else going on. So if you're seeing that, that's what's going on there. As far as the film itself, I think it's extraordinary, dealing with this sort of internal struggle in Britain to know how to move forward. The politics, of course, is what Troy was talking about of like, well, you have a massive sort of anti-war coalition that centers around Chamberlain. And what makes Churchill interesting is when he creates his war cabinet, he really has an unorthodox decision to create, or rather include all of his biggest critics. Like he's literally creating his political opponents as part of this war cabinet to make these decisions. So he's constantly under pressure from these people. There's parts of the film where they're conspiring to figure out if they can sort of unseat his authority to continue, this war and actual military conflict. So the film starts and progresses. You have Lily James, who's basically his personal typist, and he comes across as just kind of being a bully and obnoxious and whatever. Jace Fox with us. Hey man, Troy he's in and he's rebooting. He'll come back in a second. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for stopping in. Again, that's why I wanted to bring Troy in, because I wanted to make sure he could really speak to maybe some of the historical accuracies or inaccuracies of how Churchill is being portrayed. I think there's a lot of, like he said, their facts are pretty much the facts. Like there's certain dates, certain speeches, things like that they kind of adhered to pretty well. The portrayals I thought were great. Ben Mendelsohn as King George was fine. So I think the performances were great, and you sort of get this. It is a drama, but it's not, because the performances are so good. It's not like one of these drab, hard to watch dramas. I actually time seemed to me to felt like it just was going by pretty smoothly, pretty quick. And even though, it's a heavy topic or whatever, I didn't feel sort of like really run down or burned by any of it. So here's another look. See how different you can actually see more Gary Oldman here without the glasses and the hat, but his transformation is just tremendous. And these looks that he has, here's one of the bathrobe scenes where he's in his pajamas, basically. And it was really fascinating and there's Troy. Troy's back.
Very sorry about that.
No
Computer
problem
problems.
at all. Well, you sound so much, brighter.
I don't know. There was something going on, so
sure.
Best that it's taken care of now, I guess.
I'm trying to just heap praise on Oldman's transformation. And these different looks that he has, these different scenes. It's like look at how different. I mean, I'm not trying to say he's. It's just that the way the presentation, they didn't shy away from showing him with the cigar, without the hat, in his pajamas. He's all buttoned up, and they really are like multiple looks of Churchill brought to life, and that made this film seem even more believable to me. It makes the time go by well because I completely personality.
I completely lost Gary Oldman in them. That's to me a sign of a good actor. When you forget, oh, that's that guy that I saw in this and that and the other. He, as far as you're concerned, he's Winston Churchill, and he got the character down. He was overbearing. He was manic. The booze, the cigar, even the mumbling. Although. I think he lessened, he softened the mumbling because you need to understand him in the film.
So a lot of that, and I said this is why I want to make sure I had included you, because I wanted you have at least some more familiarity than I think I do, as far as some of the historical backdrop and the elements of the transition from Chamberlain to him, and before we get to Dunkirk. But
yes,
how much of this political unrest and his political capital and how everything is at odds, what are some of the fact checking that you would kind of throw into that conversation?
So you got to consider that, again, there's you got to weigh this with, some of this is my opinion. Okay. But that's always going to be the case. Again, there's the facts and then there's the politics. When you get to politics, we're talking, a little bit of opinion. But you must consider that first, I think, he's coming in Chamberlain. I think sometimes Chamberlain gets a bum rap. Again, you have to look at the history and try to look at it a little bit from his point of view, right? Remember, World War I is coming right off of, World War II is coming right off of World War I. We've had a generation that's already gone through a horrible, horrible war. So the idea that they are war weary should be obvious. Okay. So then when you look at how Chamberlain led, you go, well, kind of understand it. And
let me just jump in and say, I didn't think the film did a good enough job of trying to convey that. That's totally skipped. Like, that's, if you don't know that timeline and the effect on the European nations, it's not, they just jump right into removal of Chamberlain. They're all about peace. He's viewed as weak. It's all, this is the perspective, but they don't give you a little bit of that backstory. There's really just nothing. You're thrown into it. So that is a very, very fair, probably an often forgot criticism of the film, to not give an audience a more fair presentation or way we view the other characters. Because it's not just Chamberlain, it's his party and his supporters.
I agree. And I even have to go so far as to say that that's kind of a double-edged sword, right? So on the one hand, it's almost like they're assuming more knowledge on the audience's part than they're showing, right? But then on the other hand, they play kind of fast and loose with it. So if you are the sort that would have that sort of perspective on Chamberlain, you're also going to notice some of the other problems with what they do and what's not there and so forth. For example, speaking exactly to what you said about not giving us the setup that we should have. There's all the scenes that are taking place in that underground bunker, right? Why are they in that underground bunker?
Right.
There was no discussion of the Blitz, right? And one also has to keep in mind too, and that's the other side of what I was saying about Chamberlain. On the one side, you understand Chamberlain's reticence to get into another war. On the other hand, they're freaking being bombed, right? It's like, hello. I mean,
yeah.
If we're having these meetings in a bunker, and that is the context under which they, expressed no confidence in Chamberlain and brought in who? The warmonger, right?
Yeah.
You bring in a you have a warmonger and you have him behind a glass case, break in case of emergency. That's what they were doing with Winston Churchill. They were breaking because it was an emergency. So I think a lot of the arguments you're seeing there make no sense in that context. It's like nobody wants to sue for peace. All he had to do was turn around and say, hey guys, you brought me in because we're being bombed. We're in a bunker. We're about to lose our country. In fact, you have that conversation with the king about.
Right, I was looking to see if the trailer had a shot of that because I think that deserves a lot. I know this is like when he goes there. It was really fascinating because you could feel the tension that you're talking about. Like I don't really like you. You're not the one that I want to be here, but I feel like, okay, you're the one. Like it was great because it's. Yeah, the film sells itself short because it's funny because it's such a great film. And it's like there's so many little things they could have done, like a conversation that could have had like 2 less lines here and add 2 lines to talk about, what do you expect from me? We've been, World War I was like, 2 months, the 2 years this year. It would have been easy to throw some of that, throw the audience some of those little breadcrumbs.
Right. And it's the same argument that I often make about, the comic book movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing an adaptation of some comic book, okay, go ahead and throw the lines in for the audience that knows that lore, because the ones that don't, well, that's what Wikipedia is for. You know that as soon as they get home, they're going to look up all the little Easter eggs, the things they didn't understand. Right. They might even start reading some of those old back issues, right? Same thing with a historical thing. You're going to go, I want to learn more about the Blitz. I want to learn more about Dunkirk. I want to, so forth.
Yeah, I was thinking after we kind of had talked a little bit to put this together, where we have these 2 films that have this like Venn diagram approach, where they could be so perfectly as a history and an experience that you can go through, folks, to experience all this happening. And I thought about the film 1917 with World War I, and then I thought about
I have not seen it yet.
Ooh, that would be a fun one to do with you because they shot it so that it's in real time. So it's in real time.
That's what now.
And it is a cinematography masterpiece. Even if it's never your thing, or someone who's not a war movie, and you can say, if anyone's just into film, the extra scenes and how they did certain shots, it's mind blowing what Sam Mendes pulled off with that film. It's crazy.
You touch off something wonderful there. You just described that movie as being real time, right? And it covers a specific, right?
Yeah, you get 2 hours or how exactly. I don't know exactly how long the film is.
These two movies we're talking about here tonight.
Yep.
Very different. You have one, Dunkirk, which is told out of order.
Yep.
Non-linear, not a problem. I kind of like it. Okay. But that's a different scenario. And then you have this one that implies, because of the ticking clock, that it is real time, but it's absolutely not.
Right.
It covers things that haven't happened yet, that won't happen for maybe years, or should have already happened, and condense it down. And it's like, you're lying to us. You're telling us these things happened on this date and they didn't.
Yep.
That kind of bugged me too. But I did also want to comment on the freeze frame you got right here. Mm-hmm. So this is, if I'm correct, this is the scene where he's talking to the king, and the king is appointing him.
I didn't see a shot quickly. I pulled it around quickly to see. I didn't see a shot with him and Ben Mendelsohn as King George. So they're standing face to face, folks. And there's like a back and forth with them. So go ahead.
So His Majesty is asking him to accept the posting. I love the end of this scene as someone who actually does history reenacting, specifically British history reenacting.
Ooh, all right.
I know exactly what it's like to be in that awkward situation where I'm not supposed to turn my back, but I need to get to the door.
Yeah, I have to go now. And he like backs up.
And he's like,
he just backs up, and he's looking like, I know I can't turn around. I know I can't turn around. Which is portrayed. It creates humor without a gag. because
exactly
it's awkward and nervous. So you as an audience person just kind of have some stress relief as you kind of move through the film. And this keeps happening several times in the film where they have humor, but not punchline jokes. It's just fun. There's little fun.
Because it's the way life really goes, right?
That's correct.
That
especially the scenes
there,
with his wife, right? Similarly, it's like him with his wife. It's like there's tension breaking because it's just it's just them. It's like I loved it. It made this film feel so authentic.
And I don't know if this particular scene happened in that way.
I don't know.
But again, knowing the protocol and knowing the relationship between those two, they were not friends, right?
That is fact.
Whereas someone else who might have been like, Chamberlain or Halifax or whatever, might have had a closer relationship with the king, who would have been like, okay.
Well, and the king probably would have walked them out. Like it would have been more of a side-by-side walk rather than, you can go now because it's that awkwardness. Like you said, I love your analogy. It's break the glass case and bring the warmonger in. It's like this guy does not want to do this. He doesn't even want to be a part or being, he doesn't want to have the villagers at the gate basically to say, you've got us into another war, king. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. That's how this king is thinking. So,
and I feel like that is this is where there's an offset. I feel like on the one hand, like I said, you have these, I don't know, the peaceniks or whatever saying, we want to appease, No, that time is over. It's time to focus on war. Is the king going to be taking that point of view too? He's already invited, Churchill to be prime minister. He knows the need for a strong, basically offense at this point. Mm-hmm. He's not going, and he's having conversations about, I might have to go to Canada and rule in exile.
Yeah.
Then you don't sue for peace.
Right. Yeah. And well, you figure it I got to be honest, even after some of these conversations, and I watched it again today, and I thought to myself, why wouldn't you just leave?
Right.
I mean, there's a certain element of, trying to keep some sort of order. There's got to be somewhere safer to be, whether that be in Ireland or something. I don't even know exactly where he would need to go to be safe, but there's different things like that didn't quite make sense in a way when you look at it that way. But
I can answer that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's
because there is historic. And see, again, this is all the out of time kind of stuff. They took things from the future and pulled it into here to tell a narrative. One of these days we're going to have to do what was that, Midway? We'll have to do Midway. That's another one that I think squeezes too much into one movie. But in this very circumstance, it's later on in the war that the king starts talking about that possibility of having to, rule in exile from Canada. But that was a conversation that happened, just not then. That's kind of putting the cart before the horse.
I will touch on this as a positive again in storytelling, because this scene is it's him having a moment with his family celebrating that he's going to be the prime minister. So we actually learn a lot about the family and their closeness and how supportive they are for him and that kind of thing, without having to have a whole bunch of expositions and conversations. And, he doesn't have to kiss every kid at, good night. He doesn't, sometimes you see these movies and you're like, oh my God, I've seen this like 20 times. It's just, you just know you can go to the bathroom in the movie theater because you know what's going to happen. This film, what made this film so good was I think it's rare to have pulled off what you said. Because normally if Troy had said, well, they messed with the timeline, they put this here, they put this there. And if anyone's listened to me or they've read my reviews over the years, I can't stand all of that. It just drives me completely nuts most of the time because it alters something either for no reason or they butcher it and it creates a cascade of other problems. Somehow this film, it kind of creates a couple of issues, but nothing that derails the film for me. That is exceedingly rare. So,
I don't know. The underground scene kind of bothered me.
I don't even know where that came from, but I will tell you that
either.
I'm such a wuss that it still got me today.
A flight of whimsy for the purpose of humanizing him, I guess, and that's fine. There are other ways to do it, like, you know, the family scene that you just described.
Right.
Creating something out of whole cloth that never happened bugs me. You know?
Yeah, I don't even have frame of reference. I just know it does get me. I'm a wuss for that scene. I don't know why.
It's a great scene cinematically.
I almost want to lift the scene for those days, you know, where you hope that maybe someday you'll get monetized on YouTube, and you can play a little clip. If someone throws you a couple $1 super chat or something, you can play the little clip, and little girls like, never. And it's like, we'll never surrender. It's like, it's like, yes, it's patriotism and it's best. This is great. And it's
it's wonderful. That's just not.
I understand it's all heartstrings and stuff. And it's like,
no, I get that too. But there's what was, I may have just derailed myself. I forgot.
I probably made it worse.
No, don't worry. It's fine. But no, I do have if we do more of these, if you have me back, I think that I'm a little complex. It's not real simple to just sum up how I feel about historical pieces. I love historical accuracy. At the same time, I can appreciate maybe truncating things, simplifying for the purpose of a film or whatever. But I feel like there's certain rules. Don't make up things out of whole cloth.
Right.
I look at like John Adams, that mini series from, was it Showtime or something? I don't remember.
Yeah, Paul Giamatti's on.
Yeah. Paul Giamatti. Yeah, exactly. That's a great one they took some liberties, but if you know the history, you're like, I see what they're doing there. That's fine.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
I say the same thing about, and I'm hoping you'll want to do this one too, Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, that's
Saving Private Ryan
it's a masterpiece. It's the best one.
It's historic fiction.
Yes.
But it does it in such a way that the flavor of the war is more accurate than I think most war films.
It's rooted in some factual elements that they threaded together in a fictional story. Ryan just he kind of chimed in about basically what you were saying. Churchill was a great wartime leader, but he was not a great peacetime leader later on. But Churchill was old and ill by that time. Yeah, he was removed immediately, basically, whenever some of that stuff was done. So.
No. I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a responsibility to the legacy of real people, right? So if you're talking Saving Private Ryan, you kind of have latitude. They're inspired by real people, but they're not. So you can be fictionalized about it.
Oh, that's a great
shot. But they get all the points about all the backstory of the history is accurate. When you look at Titanic, that bothers me because they took some liberties with real people that were side characters. And it's like, that man was a real person who has a family, and you just dishonored him in this film, that kind of a thing.
So in addition to the moving calendar, you do have like a couple of scenes where you have like newspaper stuff and ticking clocks and things like that. And that's Clementine. That's the spouse.
Do you know who the actress was that played his wife?
I do not know. I'd have to look it up.
That's okay. She struck me as familiar, and I couldn't place her.
Well, she looks so much like Vera Farmiga. Farmiga. I don't know how to say her last name. She's the lady that was in Bates Motel and stuff. Like, that's not her. That's not who it is.
Yeah.
That's not who it is. But that's
no. Yeah.
And in real life, Clementine, wasn't quite that pretty. I mean, good night. He was not that lucky to have a wife.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. So he gets Gary Oldman definitely gets an upgrade in the.
But I do feel that the character was pretty good.
No, I thought the characterization was great. Because it's anyway. Kristen Scott Thomas. She is famous. She was part of the Four Weddings and a Funeral film, the classic film from '94. She's been an English Patient, where she won nominated for English Patient. She's done a ton of work. I mean, her resume is massively long. You know what? That's funny because she has such an incredible resume, and she's not a name that you ever think of off the top of your tongue. At least mine. I would never. Yeah, but she's been like Mission Impossible and stuff like that. So, yeah. So, and just kudos to, I am not a big Lily James fan, to be honest. In a lot of her movies, and basically, I got to be honest, even in this movie, she doesn't have a lot of range. She's kind of the same character
Yes.
showing up over and over again, but it really works in this film.
Yep.
Because she represents not only a different voice against Churchill's behavior, she a lot of times is representing the audience. She's representing how we're feeling in those moments. Like sometimes she's there as the typist and she's transcribing or whatever, and you'll see her responses and how she's handling all this information around her or what is actually in the letter. And it literally is how we're feeling or what we're supposed to feel. And I think that was a fair way to make sure the audience is staying with you.
I think the other thing that she did was she served to show moments that humanized Churchill when she's unable to continue typing and she becomes emotional. You know, it gives you the opportunity to soften him just a bit.
Yeah, the Battle of Calais, right, where they're just going to have to sacrifice men, and he's writing the letter to the leader, and she basically stops typing, and you're like, yeah, and he starts breaking down too. He's like, okay, this is, and then they start, there's another scene where she's confessing that the brother had sacrificed himself already.
That's
in
a little bit later, but you're right.
It's another scene that's really good,
and it's not too far removed from the scene where he's making a decision that we're going to have to sacrifice. What was it? 4,000 for 30,000 or something like that.
He thinks they're only going to get 30,000,
right?
But he's willing to at least try something. Yeah.
That is the mathematics of war. Unfortunately, that's what is required. It's kind of that Spock line, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And it sucks from a human standpoint, but you need people that can look past that in times of tragedy like that. But don't think that didn't weigh on him.
And I thought they did a good job of conveying that. So well. Obviously, one of the most brilliant scenes of the film is his initial speech, where they use the red light. He's going to be on air because he's delivering his first live speech.
Yep.
He's awkward. He's paused. He's changing words at the last minute, and they use this red light and this effect.
Yep.
That I think is just brilliant because it really moves you into the seriousness of all this, and then you get the other side of Churchill, which is I'm glad the trailer did this too. It puts he holds up this V symbol. He gets this image in his head of V for victory, but he holds it up backwards. So it's basically like to the common man, it just means F you.
Yeah.
So he learns victory, but it's not. He's saying this, and he laughs about it. So you have this great, complicated character thrown in this almost impossible scenario and trying to stand up, and then you have historical context around it. Love this film. Love this film.
There's one little scene that caused me to chuckle. I have to wonder if you even caught it. There's the scene where he has the phone conversation with FDR, and he's looking
he's in the toilet. Yeah.
WC Winston Churchill.
Closet.
Well, Winston Churchill. There's that parallel, and it's like American audiences might not catch that. They'll look and they'll go, Winston Churchill. Wait, is this his office? What's going on here?
Oh, that's true.
The water closet. And I chuckled, and I'm like, And then
I really like that scene because he puts the phone down.
Yeah.
So basically, and again, I'm trying not to give too many major spoilers, folks. This is all historical record, and I hope that you see a film like this. We want to recommend Darkest Hour because, I want to encourage good films, and then I want to encourage you to grow. And this is a great heroic story that is kind of under attack by current political culture. But in this scene, he's asking Roosevelt for help. It's like, give me something, Franklin. Give me something. Get me planes. And Franklin is totally jerking him around. And then it's like it's so absurd. He's like, well, I can get planes to the Canadian border, and if you can bring horses. And he's like, and at some point he just puts the phone down. He's so exasperated.
Now that's another thing.
And I'm sure this is either totally fictionalized or exaggerated or something. I don't know
entirely.
I loved it.
Okay, this is my interpretation of it. Okay, I think that the film writer was trying to convey some real world history through, I don't want to call it a gag, but it kind of was. The fact is, the US, FDR, we wanted to get involved. We just had a problem with kind of international law and the situation and things we'd agreed to and whatnot. We could do a whole other show about false flags and, you know, why we got into World War II. But honestly, this movie made it seem like FDR is like, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get involved. He's on the Chamberlain side. And that wasn't the case.
No, I think that there is a line there that talks about like what's it called, something national act that Congress did.
Yes,
it's handcuffed me. I can't do anything.
And
so I felt like he was trying to play kind of Chamberlain, but also like pass the buck. He blamed somebody else.
I feel like that was a film shorthand to talk about that.
Okay.
And say, because we had the whole Lend-Lease thing going on, and they kind of implied that in that scene, but it was like, this is what we would have to do, you know, under international law and agreements to help you out. Now, the reality is, did he really make them bring some horses across the board? No, it
was just comical, if nothing else. It was great.
It's like, you realize that's what we'd have to do. And then he's like, I'll deliver these planes to Canada, and then you just get them home. You know, that's
as though that would just be this easy thing to do, or how long it would actually take to get over there with a carrier and bring back. I mean, it was just like, it was this crazy. Yeah. Anyway, we'll run long if we keep carrying on with Darkest Hour too much. This is a shot. Oh, did I close it? I closed it. Let me put it back. These are these speeches and pieces are. Oh, come on now. Play nice, StreamYard. There are pieces that are great. Some great lifts from actual speeches, some not so much. I just love it. And I will say, with these scenes, this scene in particular, they did a really good job of bringing this to life. I thought this was set design, costuming.
It really does look like Parliament, to be honest.
I thought this scene, these scenes in particular, from what I have seen, that's pretty accurate. That's pretty great stuff. Somebody did some great work.
I kind of question the lighting in this scene, but I understand it's a dramatic effect.
Yeah. I don't know about the lighting, but as far as just the look of it, set design, costume, so this is a high recommend for me. A high recommend for me. If you love anything that's this sort of like, you know, elements of history, politics, war, drama, great acting, this has a lot of that. It's a high recommend.
You follow me on Twitter, so I'm assuming you saw my Twitter.
You're a ball of fun on Twitter, bro.
You saw my post about this?
I don't know.
Maybe not. So
I don't know. You post a lot like I do, so I may have. This
is one that your audience might enjoy. When you asked me to do this, it was like, I saw the movie once. I need to refresh my memory. I went to my shelf to look for it, and I didn't see it. It turns out it was misfiled.
Oh, right.
Spoiler.
You posted a picture of the DVD. You had it or something.
But I thought that I had it, and I couldn't find it. So I'm like, I went to Amazon right away and I ordered it. Right. Okay. So I reordered it, and it arrives the next day. I didn't realize it would make it in one day. And the Alexa, I don't want to say her, come on. The Echo Dot comes on and, says, does the little yellow thing. And I'm like, what's my notification? One new notification. Darkest Hour has arrived.
Oh, right.
I'm sitting there going, wow, that's ominous.
I remember that tweet.
I ordered okay, yeah, that's what that is.
Yes, that is so good. And actually, anything that involved, it was funny you say that, because I started creating the thumbnail, and just typing the phrase Darkest Hour was a little weird. Like, it's just a strange phrase to have to throw out there. So anyway, that's our analysis of Darkest Hour, folks. Tell us what you think. Give it a watch, especially in today where there's not a lot of great time stuff. Let me say hey to Apollome's Minion. Hey, there's a lady. I love your little doggy videos. Make sure you keep them coming.
A great transition, though, for that is that because I'm assuming you want to go into Dunkirk now, right?
Yes.
That Darkest Hour speech, and it comes up again in Dunkirk.
Yes.
Doesn't happen until after Dunkirk.
Right.
But they drew on it a little bit early in the movie. So again, you're like, And
Yeah,
it was
it's funny how, like I said, it's like as a whole, I can still recommend Darkest Hour, even though these things peppy. So I'm watching there's an HBO show called Winning Time. I don't know if you're into sports at all, but in 1979, Magic Johnson led the Lakers in his rookie year to win the championship. So there's this little docudrama.
Sure.
And for the most part, it's really raunchy. I have to fast forward a lot of stuff, but that's okay. I get the gist. And I was cruising along pretty well with like fact checking it. I'm like, some of the stuff's really checking out. And then suddenly they changed like a couple of games. Like this is not who they played. This is not who they lost. It was just really strange. Like just abruptly they made these like major factual changes, and it just totally honked me off. I was so mad for like a day. Like, why would they do this? I mean, literally like the one game they like reenact the pass and the shot. And I mean, they were so detailed and meticulous. To make this kind of change later was really weird.
Did you ever find, I mean, was there some narrative reason that they did that?
Yeah, they were trying to create they're trying to recreate a losing streak at a specific time for the story, rather than how there was a game or two gap, and it kind of, where they were playing mattered differently, those kinds of elements.
I get you.
But yeah, Dunkirk is not for everyone. I will say that. I treat it as a high recommend, because if you're not a Christopher Nolan fan, you understand. And I will say, the first time I saw it in the theater, there is an abrupt shot where because you have three distinct storylines that are happening. It's broken up into 1 week of events, 1 day of events, and 1 hour of events. So you have air, sea, and land all happening in this film, and there's an abrupt change back to the boat, and it's dark, and I'm like, in the theater I was like, what happened? Like, how did they get... Now in hindsight, this film is brilliant. I mean, when you watch this,
it's worth it for a multiple watch.
And you start clicking. Yeah, when you watch it the second time, you're going to pick up on all sorts of great elements of this film. And I really wonder how well it would work linear, in a linear format. Oh, George Lucas is here. We should just make sure we make a note, just so everybody knows. George Lucas stopped by.
There you go.
Always watching, George. So what are your thoughts?
Well, there's somebody who knows how to tell a story too.
Yes, it is. Thank you, George. So what are your thoughts on Dunkirk as a non-linear versus linear story and all of that?
I love it because, again, it really does get into the it puts you in the situation so you can understand it from the point of view of somebody that experienced that.
Yes.
And again, it mixes together fictional characters with real characters. And when they insert a fictional character, it's fine. It's meant to be character insert. All the history around it, really spot on. That's the thing that this movie has, is the historical accuracy.
Yep.
The other thing it has is Christopher Nolan has this, I'd almost call it an obsession with practical effects. So I loved his use of practical effects in this movie.
Yeah.
I would say almost to a fault, and we can talk about that in a bit. But I mean, like, for example, you had the Heinkel 111 bomber. There was no analog that he could get his hands on. So he got a radio controlled plane and used perspective and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
And you can't even tell.
Yeah, you can't tell.
It's amazing. No CG in this movie.
Now, that's where he went and found Spitfires.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
Well, he didn't find real Spitfires.
Well, they made them though, right? Or no?
They were Spanish planes that were like analogous.
Oh, okay.
Close enough.
It's funny because there's a flight museum here in Florida that I took my son to, and I know they had Mustangs, and I for some reason when I saw this film, I thought to myself, I wonder if they have Spitfires. Like, yeah, they had them. They would buy them in these auctions and stuff. This guy was this millionaire anyway. So, first storyline is land. This is what it looks like at Dunkirk Beach. They're trying to get everyone off of Dunkirk Beach because the Nazis. Oh, I said the word. The Germans are marching across Europe, and they're basically going to run out of land. They're basically just going to lose basically their entire military force. So again, if you watch Darkest Hour first, this is a
They
lot
talk,
of what's
yeah,
being
about
talked about.
the background from the Isles point of view. Yes.
Yeah. So then that's the one part. And and again, this is also loaded with like, so Kenneth Branagh as Bolton is he has these magnificent elements of his performance, even though the amount of screen time is actually not very much. It's
that scene.
He closes his
eyes. One of the best and worst of the movies of this movie. I mean, he's got this great line where he talks about 400,000 men. And the next scene after this, you look at the beach and you go, where the hell are they?
Half of them are not here. Yeah, I know.
More than, I mean, that's the problem, because they chose not to go with CG.
Yeah. So, and one of the things
should have been filled with people.
And so when I first saw this movie, I have to be honest, the amount of appreciation that you get when you watch certain movies, it changes your perspective.
There's some great
being attacked from the air in this scene just blew my mind. I'm like, and then, this is what it was like on land. It's like, what do you do? Well, people just lay down. They don't know what to do. Yep. And they have, oh, by the way, folks, this is the least bloody war film you may ever see beyond 1960. I don't even know where the line would probably be, but modern, definitely the least bloody. I don't know if there's any significant amount of blood. There's no gore whatsoever. There's nothing like that. He's showing the horrors of everything without you having to be exposed to sort of the effect that you saw in like Saving Private Ryan.
It's a very Hitchcock-esque kind of cinematography.
So this was a story he heard about, and he included it because this is the lack of this is the hopelessness that certain people actually had. He heard this story and made this scene, things like that. So this is what he brought. So then you have, them trying to get off and try to survive, and then you have this, like we were talking about the Spitfires. Oh, I went too far. Where he used actual dogfight footage. He really tried to recreate everything. They used real planes. And Tom Hardy again spends most of the film with something covering his face, but he does get his shot at the end.
And I do have to say something else about Tom Hardy. Real Spitfires had about 14 seconds of ammo, and Tom Hardy seemed to have a Hollywood load.
Yeah, he had a unlimited video game amount.
I think they kind of went for the action there when what could have been just as dramatically good was running out of ammo and being like,
Yeah.
Now what do I do?
Then the other element, which is, Churchill is looking for the private navy.
Yep.
So he asked for boat owners. The Mark Rylance's performance is tremendous. It's so brilliant and subtle. Right. Just taking
that
command
Dunkirk
of the situation.
Spirit. Yeah.
Oh, the heroism that he's showing as a citizen of, like what you see in that we were talking about the scene in the Underground Railroad, the Underground Subway, that the citizens felt. Yep. He is acting it out in real life by captaining this boat, with these kids basically just trying to pick up sailors. And then what happens along the way, and it's just crazy.
I think this
so
film,
good.
This film, I've seen this so many times, and I forget what's actually there and what's just my own a priori knowledge. But the fact was, the big ships couldn't get close enough to land. They needed smaller ships to go ferry the men to the larger ships. That's why they needed these smaller fishing boats and schooners and so forth. And I think that is absolutely spot on. Gosh, and there was a great deal of animosity because of this incident between the ground troops and the RAF. Where's the RAF? They didn't feel they got the. Now, I think again there's a disservice done to the RAF because there was. Yes, it's true. They were held in reserve. They even talk about it in Darkest Hour, how and why they had to hold back a lot of the RAF. But there was still, a good number of planes there. I think it was like, I don't know, like they flew 3,500 sorties. But what did we actually see in the movie?
3.
We saw 3 planes.
But I think Nolan does a good job of like giving you 3 scenarios of the
Yes, that's
fate
true.
of pilots. Like, so let's say in real life there was 500. I don't know how many.
Yeah.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. 100, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So a third may have just disappeared. A third got shot down. A third somehow survived. You know, maybe out of that last third, you know, this amount of percent got captured or whatever. So I think this is where Nolan's brilliance and what makes Dunkirk so great is there are all these little elements that he has to use some creative liberty with.
Yes.
You know, the amount of, again, like you said, there's not 400,000, there's not 300,000 troops on this beach in this film, but you get the sense of this impossible task. And we have, you know, 50 private boats that show up when we know there was hundreds, you know, there was over 170, I think I read once, of private boats that were destroyed that we don't even have them classified. There's the extras. And we don't even know what they are. So
145 planes from the RAF went down at Dunkirk.
Yeah. So there's some scale that you lose, but you capturing moments, you're capturing the heroic elements. The thirst for survival is brilliant.
And that's what I was talking about earlier when I said using fiction to give the flavor of reality. There's a scene where one of the pilots goes down and I think he went down in the water. He gets onto the beach and then he gets in line with the soldiers to try to, you know, get on a ship to try and get back home. And he's met with, this is for the infantry.
Yep. I'm trying to figure out what I have here.
And it's like, hey, I just went down. I almost died coming to help you guys. And then they have that other scene back in England where it's like, where were you guys?
Yeah,
where were you?
Yeah, when they're finally walking in, and then Mark Rylance character's like, no, it's okay. The other guy knows.
And
you know what I mean? It's like brilliant.
Took hundreds of stories and condensed them down into 3 characters, really, because that hits the flavor of accuracy, right? Because in the moment, some of those boys were pissed. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
You're fine.
They were angry. But in retrospect, every single one of them looks back on it and goes, yeah, maybe I was a bit harsh. You know?
And then again, here, like some of the scale, like we get just a dose of some attacks, right? We just get a dose of the fear. This is going to happen. He hides underwater. So again, scale, right? So does it mean this one character did all 7 of these things to finally survive? Probably not. But reality is you have one soldier who did this element or that element. And Nolan captures so many pieces of this. Like, this is what it was like. Oh, they're jumping off the boat. This one, you know, he ducks under the water. This is, you know,
and then the fire on the water.
Oh,
you know,
the boat tips over, oil bursts out. Everyone knows it's going to happen. Well, when will it happen? When will it happen? Oh, there's so much great tension of all of that. So, this is one of those scenes you're talking about. So the plane went down. They're trying to get him on the boat. They've already picked up the shell shock, the other guy. This is that guy. They're picking up Cillian Murphy's character here.
Right.
And
just a shout out to the practical effects. They sank a real ship to get that scene.
That's crazy, isn't it? Isn't that just when you think about the amount of CGI stuff that people, no one can do this. I think there's really only maybe a handful of directors that get this much creative liberty, because I think M. Night Shyamalan has spent his. I'm not sure he will for any more projects, but he was one of those two where they would lease out an entire mental hospital for him to film.
Right.
You know, it's like things like that are not normally what people do.
I'm very much a right tool for the right job kind of guy.
Yeah.
I appreciate practical effects whenever possible, but there are times where CG is appropriate. I think they could have used it a lot in this movie to make modern day Dunkirk look like it did back then. Maybe they should have.
Sure.
But that's kind of a nitpick, I guess.
And maybe adding some of the scale. Like, I think they could have had stuff in the background. Like, you could have had, I wanted a bunch of CGI soldiers in the beaches, but you could have had maybe an aerial shot, like 3 seconds that shows he looks out. Yeah, you're seeing this, 10,000, 20,000, but it just goes on for miles. It just goes on for, I don't know, I don't even know how they were lined up on the beach or how many beaches were involved, but the amount of boats in the water, you see 20, but there were, obviously hundreds. So things like that. But this is Cillian Murphy. I love the element and the narrative. Like, so there's like life lessons that are happening here where the son's like, he doesn't want to go below deck. At one point he says, yeah, you wouldn't either if you'd been shell shocked. The later you see a soldier not wanting to do it. And then he's trying to rationalize with that guy, like he has to go below deck because we're going to run out of room. You're going to be blocking the way. And so there's so many little pieces about the horrors of war and what's actually happening that come out of this film. I don't know about you, but I mean, I love these little tiny nuances that are slipped in. Uh-oh. Sorry, I'm on the wrong screen. I lost Troy again. Anyway, so folks, again, a high recommend. Loved the acting and performances. This was Cillian Murphy's character is that shell-shocked soldier. You get some great work here. This is some stuff early in the film, first opening scene of the film. Then you get these survival scenes where you have different things that are happening. Obviously, in the boat, there's this thought of what happens if the boat goes down, how will you get out of the room? And then it actually happens. Like you know it's going to happen in a way because it's been foreshadowed, but because they didn't ruin it for you, it really did work. It really did work. So again, it's told out of order. It's a little hard to get used to. But I think if you've seen it once, you can do good by seeing it again. I think you would enjoy it. It's like one of these things where I really want to make sure folks know that they can. There are good films to watch. And Darkest Hour and Dunkirk are definitely a Venn diagram of this historic rescue operation in British history and Churchill's legacy. A lot of what happens at the very end of Dunkirk. At the very end of Dunkirk is the speech that Churchill. As Troy was saying or explaining, was that the timelines and the dates, it's not all perfect. It's not all perfect. But unlike many other films, it captures the essence. It captures the spirit. You get heroic journeys, and there's so much positive emotion that comes out of it all. I just loved it. I just really did. And Troy, what else can we sum up and say? How else can we sum up and some of the heroic elements? Because at the end of the movie, there's like kind of you get it. So it's great because you have sort of like different heroic messages for the different pieces. Like, what would it be like if you were the guy that actually survived? Because they're on the train, they think they're going to be met with disdain and disappointment by the citizens, and then the ones they got the brother was lost, and then the pilot, he's basically sacrificed everything he can do, and he's going to get captured, and all these different elements I thought were just really a great way to close the film.
I think that, especially because it's a British film, there's this, and I mentioned it earlier, there's this concept of the Dunkirk spirit, that's been brought up many times. You see it in the civilians going to help. You see it in the soldiers and the RAF and so forth, just trying to survive. And this attitude of what we came to call the greatest generation, right?
Yeah, that's true.
We talk about heroism. There it is. And these aren't comic book characters with special powers. These are average guys that just went off to do what they could. Let's see what we can do. And They did more than anyone had expected. That is incredibly, yep, there's my wife, Netter. She worked late, so she's just joining us. She'll probably catch the rewatch later. But damn it.
Uh-oh, he froze again. Hang in there, Troy. It's okay. Can you hear me?
No, I can hear you, but I can't.
Okay.
You can't hear me.
It's okay. You're fine. You're fine. Just stay there. It's like a screenshot of Troy. Troy has a great show on Friday nights. Make sure you sub, get a part of that. He does great stuff with Aged Boomer. And I'm going to have Troy back. We're going to do some more of these. I think it's a great topic that he is kind of like an expert in. And I know it seems that I'm sure he's frustrated, but to be honest, we've covered the depths. I think we both are heaping a lot of praise on both.
You can still hear me?
I can still hear you. So I think they can still hear you too.
Well, then forget about my camera. Who cares about that?
Yeah, you
don't want to see my ugly mug anyway.
That's what I always said. You're still in my thunder. Tell Nutter to give us a thumbs up if she can hear us. Then with that,
I'm sure she already has, but if she hasn't, she will.
Okay. That way we know that they can hear you. So, but I can definitely hear you. So reality is this, they're great movies. We both recommend them. And I think that if you're like kind of a little bit nerdy like I am, I've enjoyed learning more. Now I will be honest, a lot of what I'll read or learn, by the time I watch the thing again, she's giving us a thumbs up that she could hear you. So we're good.
There we go.
I'll forget, but it's a law of time and numbers and reading, whatever. So anyway, Troy's been an awesome guest and resource to do all this with.
Thank you for. I never have these kinds of technical issues. So
of course you're gonna have it.
Sorry, it had to be on your show, but thanks,
bro. At this point, this is the kind of stuff that used to take the wind out of my sails. Now with the way my life situation's gone, I'm just plowing through. At this point, I'm like, all right, whatever, okay. I mean, it's just about content. It's like playing the algorithm game. It's about enjoying yourself and sharing with other people and being positive and uplifting and supporting one another. And that's all that really matters in the end game, because this can all end tomorrow. These people, these social media companies are crazy. The pop culture companies and, that are they're crazy, so we, I call it the fellowship family, man. Fellowship family. It's just, you got to do our thing.
When we talk about our beloved franchises and how they've kind of been co-opted, and we talk about canon, I have the same conviction about canon for fiction as I do for history. Don't mess with history. It was written, okay? And if you want to tell a dramatic story about it, great, go for it. And there are some areas where you can fictionalize it, but get the facts, get the backstory, get the skeleton of it right. That's all I have.
And if anything else, where they're going to make some changes and things like that, there are ways to do it and pay a proper homage to it and give it the right sort of credibility and gravitas that it deserves. And sometimes historical films don't do that. And we didn't get to other films that we talked about. We can definitely figure out how to line up another two, because I think 20-minute summaries and 30-minute summaries are great. I can't figure out the watch through. I got to be honest. I've listened to some of your watch through stuff. I love the concept of doing it that way, but this stupid copyright stuff just kills me, because you can't really watch it. It's like I don't know what to do.
Yeah, what I've started doing is and other people have done this too. If you want to watch along with me, I'll start a separate stream. Actually, I'm using a separate computer to avoid these kinds of problems. Where I'll run the film or whatever on Cosme, and it's private. It's private in that I put the link in the chat. You come join me over there and you can watch it with me there. But the commentary is over here on YouTube.
Gotcha.
So on the rewatch, if someone comes in, it's like, well, that's fine. I appreciate you being here, but you're probably going to have your own, stream or DVD of, the film to use me as
to line it up to kind of get the real time effect. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So
that's how I've done it.
But I think we've done a good job. I think we've propped these folks up. I think the companies would be happy with me, because I think I've done a good job. That's my,
But I would say, and
I'm not a great. I've basically been banished from many of the movie review circles, so that my credentials are long gone. It's very rare that I get the free screeners in advance anymore.
Yeah, but at the same time, you do it for the art, right? And I always say, own physical media, because this way, they can't take it away from you. Once you have the movie, it's yours to keep. And if they put out special editions and they edit it and they whatever, you always have it.
Yeah, that kind of got me to pull back. I forget there was just something that just came out within the last couple months. They changed something and then they put it back or whatever. But it was like
Disney's been doing a lot of that.
Well, Disney definitely has been doing a lot of that, because that was my Toy Story 2 story, where I pulled my Toy Story 2 out of the my daughter can have pile. I'm like, no. I'm going to keep that one.
Yeah.
Your kids might ruin it. We'll get you a cheaper copy. We'll get you one.
Well, then you get into things like intellectual property and fair use. You're allowed to make a copy of something for your own use. If you buy it, you can make a copy and let your daughter put it in, and when that wears out, you make another copy of the original.
Right. Yeah. So that made me pull back a lot of physical stuff that I was kind of willing to part with because of space. So like Planet of the Apes, like all of that came back. Like, yeah, I need to have the physical copies of all of these because this is a franchise that I can see them have. I think we're gonna be okay, but probably not anytime soon.
I'm getting tired of all the looking at things through modern lenses and going, well, this is problematic, that's problematic. Well,
that's the red flag, right? They say anything with modern times, modern lenses, modern life, today's time, whatever. It's like, nope, that's a red flag. Red flag, big one.
And that's the problem. And when you're talking about a historical thing, I'm sorry, I don't care what your opinion of it is. It happened.
So on a scale of like, whatever number you like, for me, when they race swapped Anne Boleyn.
Oh, that was just ridiculous.
I was like, what in the holy mother of F of what? I literally, it was presented with a press release of this, formal photo with her sitting there. And I'm thinking to myself, I would be so embarrassed to be on the board at that company at a stop. I'm just like, what on?
I have other YouTube friends, that are people of color. Wolf 10 Media, for example, has talked about this.
Yeah.
A lot of them have, and said, as people of color, they're actually offended by what they see as tokenization.
They should be. I'll steal from your boy Zach. I think it's treating them as though they're a purse puppy. They're a purse puppy.
Exactly.
They're a purse puppy. They're like, look, I carry it around with me. Look at what I got. See, I'm good. Like, it's like, no, they're not. It's a human being, and it's gross and it's disgusting.
Wolfie went off when they made this announcement, and I don't think it's ever going to happen, but they were going to do a black Superman. And he's like,
oh, right.
Do you know how many awesome black superhero characters exist and you've never made a movie of them?
I know. They don't care. Yeah.
But we're not good enough to get our own movie. You got to just race swap us.
Yeah, I just did.
That's blackface.
I couldn't believe Constantine. I couldn't. Fans didn't care for the Keanu Reeves Constantine. You think we're going to tolerate a black Constantine? What is wrong with you people? You guys are such morons. Whoever was involved with that, Zavlov, fire them all.
And I'll tell you, I mean, I had problems with the Keanu Reeves film too, but it did get some things on right at least.
No, it was like a great film. It was just, it shouldn't be called Constantine. Like, it's just not him. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think if you could just modify it slightly. I enjoy it for what it is. I can do that too. In the end, movie critic circles and all that, we could talk for an hour just about how weird and odd those cultures were and odd. I'm not in those anymore.
You probably have a better insight on that than I do.
Yeah, it was a weird thing it's just weird. Like, you're in an auditorium with like 12 people. You're watching an action film. No one ever laughs or claps or things. It's just completely different. And they're just smelling their own farts, man. Half of them are just smelling their own farts, like they're somebody special. Like the TV guy, the newspaper guy, they just think they're something special.
And I just got to say that when you look at, what is it, Rotten Tomatoes, where you see the professional critics and you see
allegedly
everybody, and everybody else, and it's like, look, and then you have them trying to mess with the numbers and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Look, there was a time in the industry where they used to go and do market research. They'd have a group of people come together, watch the film, give their opinion, and they'd change the end of a movie because of the response they got. Now you have market research for your entire audience. Start paying attention to it instead of telling them they're wrong or censoring them or whatever. Pay attention.
Yeah,
but
I
what do I know?
Tell you, it is. I was asked to try, like, well, can you register on Rotten Tomatoes so you could put this review up? It'd be a positive review or something like that. And I'm like, I would try, and I would try again. And after a while, I'm just like, I don't care. Yeah. I just didn't want to do it. I just end up in the red tape, and they want to do this, and they would ask for like personal information and stuff too. It wasn't just like my reviews. It was also like me personally.
Think?
No, it was more. This was before some of that. This was more like your personal social or something. I don't forget what it was. It was something very strange. Like, what do you need that for? Are you going to publish my review or not? You know, and it was just like, I don't want to be a part of it.
Well, the truth is now you can, through YouTube and your own channel and stuff like that, you can reach a great audience and really influence who does and doesn't go to see a movie at this point. So
I should have been doing this. I should have been doing this all along, but I didn't have anybody who said, hey, by the way, just get a USB mic and a camera, you'll be fine. No one said that.
Well, relatively speaking, look what happened to me today.
Well, and I lost so much time and money doing it the wrong way. But all right, man, I have to roll so I can go see what will probably be a horrible film, but it's important to my.
I'll be looking forward to that review.
My voice. I still got to bash Moon Knight. I didn't have a chance to actually, sit down for 5 minutes and just completely rail about how I hated Moonlight. The final episode.
You watch it so we don't have to, man.
Correct. That was that's my Halo mon. That's my Halo. We've transformed Halo into a comedy with Loki and Ironcaster. We've given them all nicknames and we boil it down to a fun hour. Our hour's way more fun than theirs. Just hang out with us so you can watch Miss Mullet and John because he's not he's not Master Chief, and we gave them all nicknames and it's.
I get it.
Moon Knight's more of me just railing out of freaking frustration of just an absolute horror show where it's like,
which is why when I do stuff on Friday nights, oftentimes that's why I drink.
And actually, if anything would make me want to think about it, it would probably be the MCU. So, folks, he is criminally low on subscribers. So I need you to at least consider checking out his content. And if it's for you, throw him a sub or two. Get this man to 400 easily, and then we need to go beyond that. But we got to get to 400 right away.
I'd appreciate it.
Check out these other shows, the stuff that he's doing, and we're going to have him back. We can definitely list off 5 movies right now that we would love to do this again from this Venn diagram of history and cinema. And I think it's a fun talk. It's great. So thanks for hanging out with me, man.
Thanks. Catch y'all tomorrow night, I hope, over on my channel.